You're listening to Nurture Your Zest. I'm your host, Ashleigh King, and I will introduce you to a wealth of interesting, fascinating individuals from all walks of life who will share their stories, how they've overcome challenges, and you will find out their top tips for success. Through this podcast, you can gain tips to grow and change your life and the way you see the world, and help you to nurture your zest. Hi everyone, my name's Ashleigh King and I'm the host of Nurture Your Zest, which is a podcast all about overcoming adversity, about courageousness, curiosity, creativity, and how you can find inspiration and nurture your zest. So tonight I'm really excited to be joined by Martin Hylton, who is a dancer, a TEDx speaker. He's an alumnus of Newcastle University. He also, is an incredibly talented artistic director of Gateway Studio Project, which is a community organisation in Gateshead in the northeast of England. So I'm really excited to share him with you today and to hear about his journey into dance, how the dance industry is coping with coronavirus, how he helps his community. We're going to go into all kinds of different things in our chat. So before I ramble on, I'm delighted to introduce him to the conversation now. Hi, Martin.
Hey, Ash, how you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for joining us.
No problem. Great to be here, chatting with you.
Absolutely. So, I would love to know, can you tell our listeners who you are and just a bit about you?
Oh, okay. I'm Martin Hylton. Originally, I'm from Leeds. I trained as a professional dancer. Was lucky enough to have a great performance career. Spent a lot of time working out in Europe as well as here in the UK. When I finished performing, I began to look at teaching and directing. So I spent quite a bit of time working with young people, um, creating my own work, commissions to create projects around various briefs, and eventually I set up Gateway Studios in Gateshead.
Absolutely. Great. And we're going to hear about all of that and more. So I want to share a quick story about the first time that I met Martin. So actually, it was at a fantastic music festival, an Afrofusion music festival called Harambe Pasadena. And I was putting my stuff away as I arrived with my friends. And I saw these stilt walkers on the grass, and there were just heaps of different people on stilts. And I'd never seen stilt walkers up close where I could just go chat to them before. And I remember it was yourself and various others, and the kids were there. Martin has four kids, sorry. But your three kids were there, and I remember saying one of the first things was, "Can you die if you fall off those stilts?" And they all looked in horror, like, "What are you doing?" This funny girl. And I think that's how they still remember me, right?
Yeah. That'd be Elijah. He still remembers that. I think Elijah's listening in. He's watching in at the moment. So yeah, Elijah still remembers that. It was a moment for him. Let's put it that way. But
Absolutely.
yeah, he still enjoys his still stuff. He still enjoys his sticks.
Great. And I'd love to talk a bit about the stilts and the sticks. And so you have lots of dancers who work with you, but you've also been a professional dancer yourself. So your own kids do lots of dancing, and that's really beautiful to see them doing that. So doing the stuff with their props and their sticks. Oh, and Elijah's just said that he does remember, which is really nice for us to see that. So yeah, it's nice to see that. That's really sweet. But yeah, so your kids, they use stilts, and they've been doing that from a really young age.
Yeah, well, I guess all my children have grown up in the studio, um, and they've all been involved in dance classes in various forms. yeah, from the moment they can start to crawl, we take them to work with us. And for Elijah especially, I was lucky enough that I received a commission to create a piece of work that involved 4 generations of dancers, and Elijah being the youngest generation as the baton got passed down. And so Elijah was able to work with 3 professional dancers, and that involved him having to learn how to walk on sticks. Yeah, how to walk on stilts. So we had some 3-foot stilts that we managed to get him up on, and he was part of this professional performance. That's the one you
Absolutely.
would have seen at Harambe Pasadena.
Yes, well, I remember that piece and it was absolutely stunning, as well as a different piece you did, which was all about I'll let you say the name. I always forget this one. Was it the aisle is dark and full of noise?
The aisle is full of noises. That wasn't my work, actually. I can't take
But
credit for that.
but you did do some choreography with that,
I
did you
did.
not?
I did. Yes, I did.
Yes.
That was the brainchild of Mr. Alan Vaughan.
Ah,
So he asked me if I'd come in and help him with some of the movement for that. So which I did.
okay. Well, while we're speaking about Mr. Alan Vaughan, so he's a very talented, award-winning designer, and I think it's just amazing the community you've got around you, the people you work with, and the creators you hang out with. It's a family, um, and that's really powerful. But can you tell us a little bit about Moko Jumbies and still walking and why it's powerful and what it means?
I can try. Okay, so how working with stilt walkers, specifically Mucko Jumbies, came about was my connection to Alan Vaughan. And Alan Vaughan teaches workshops, sticks workshops over in Wallsend, I believe. And we started talking about some creative ideas. And when I shared my idea with him about my knowledge increase, my memory reflects, we talked about having mokujumbis as part of that. And what those mokujumbis represented was the ancestral spirits. And there was a story of how those ancestral spirits were able to cross the Atlantic with the slave ships, and how they could see and trouble coming towards, and forebode warnings, basically. And so that's where the context of the Mukajumbis came in my work.
And the thing about dance and with the Moko Jumbies with other things is that dance is telling stories through movement. It's the power of sharing emotion. In the advert for tonight's episode, I shared a quote, which is something that you yourself said from TEDx last year, which is about how dance helps emotion to to just bring people together to share your vulnerabilities and how we can learn to grow. And I just wonder, while we're talking about it, so you did speak as a TEDx speaker last year. How was that experience for you, being involved with a big brand like that?
Do you know what? I'm used to being on stage and I'm used to performing, um, but I'm not used to talking. And so to stand on a TEDx stage and articulate verbally what my practice is and what I try to do through my practice was probably the most nerve-wracking thing I have ever done. I think somebody said I look like a caged lion. I was pacing up and down and broke all the rules. His TEDx, you stand on that red spot, don't move. But it's impossible. It's impossible for me. I've got to be moving. And so in the true style of Martin Hylton, the true style of Gateway, breaking all the rules, just doing everything that we shouldn't. But it was a real, at the end of it, I loved it. It was really enjoyable, but it honestly was one of the most nerve-wracking things I've done. But it was great because it gave me the opportunity to actually, whilst preparing for that talk, gave me an opportunity to sit down and actually find a way to articulate what it is that I try and do through my art form.
Absolutely. Well, I know there's a few TEDx speakers listening tonight who are going to be, they would have been speaking this May, they're having to wait till next May, but I know that they'll find that really helpful because I keep bashing the rules at them. No, you can't move around. It has to be less than 18 minutes, all of that kind of thing. But yeah, so speaking of being a rule breaker, rule breaking and dance, how does that go together? And how did you first become involved in dance?
Okay, let's talk about rule breaking first, I guess. Um, yeah, it's if you want to keep, I mean, we keep challenging the status quo. It's like we keep constantly, you talked about curiosity, and we're constantly asking, well, why is it done that way? Is there another way to do it? Do I have to follow that format? Why do I have to follow that format? And if you can achieve something in your own unique way that is um, that works better for you than what's prescribed to you, then go for it. Break those rules. I'm not telling you to break them to get yourself into trouble or anything, but you don't have to follow the prescribed route. You have something that is designed, and then you have like user designed, and the user will always find the best route, the best way to define what's best for them. So go ahead, break the rules, make it work for you. Make it work for you. I guess, how did I get involved in dance? So back in Leeds, way back, last century is all I'm going to say. Um, the school I was at actually had dance on their curriculum. It was a part of your physical education. Everyone in the school at some point had to do a dance class. Um, and then as you went through the school years towards the latter end of the school, you had a choice. And for me, it was a cold winter's day. The fields were frozen, and I remember playing rugby and got tackled, and I scratched all the side of my thighs in these little shorts. When you can just see like the blood just beginning to form. And I looked over at the building, and I saw them dancing in there, and I thought, why am I on this frozen cold pitch when I could be in there dancing? I enjoyed dancing. So that was it. I changed, and decided I was going to go join the youth group and spend my time in the warm dancing, not knowing it would bring me to this point. Um, and that's honestly, genuinely how I ended up joining the youth group. But I have to say, I did enjoy. I did enjoy it. It was creative dance. It wasn't, you know, good toes, naughty toes. It wasn't that kind of dance. It was, let's tell a story about playing a game of cricket through movement. Everything that we learned, all our discipline, all our technique was taught through telling stories through movement, and that was it. And I think I was hooked when I did my first performance, and that was just like that feeling was just so amazing. Yeah.
Was it the energy from the audience? So performing and seeing how people responded to you. And I know you've spoken to me about this before, that you'd love to measure audience reaction to dance because it's the way people are moved by it. So going out on a stage, or even if it wasn't a very big lights and that kind of thing, but going out and performing for the first time and seeing people respond to you, did you feel something like that, or was it just how did it feel the first time?
Do you know? Very selfishly, it was all about me. It was all about spending time in this place that is almost unexplainable. This feeling of that moment of flow when you're in complete flow, um, and time doesn't exist, space doesn't exist, which is what choreography is all about: the manipulation of time and space. And you are 100% in belief in the moment for that period of time. And it's rare. It's rare that you get time to be in that place. And I caught on to this quite quickly. So first and foremost, it was about this place that I could only access when I was performing. And it's a place of serene beauty and calmness and completeness. Um, but yeah, I've always been interested in what's left behind from an audience after a performance. So yeah, I mean, I've had appreciative audiences and I've had some not so appreciative audiences. Um, but when the audience is there and they feed back that energy that you're giving to them, they bounce it back to you, and it can empower you even more. Um, but that energy and that emotion that's created during a performance, I often wonder, what happens to that energy when the performers have left and the audience have left their seats, and sometimes you can almost hear it. There's a hum, there's a buzz that's left behind by all the energy.
It's interesting you say that because I know I'm a big fan of dance, whether it's ballet or Irish dancing, flamenco, whatever types of dance. But I know that often I'll keep that performance with me for some time, whether it's several weeks or even years. And, hearing a piece of music or looking back, um, it can really touch me. And most dance performances I go to, I cry, which is kind of embarrassing, but actually, your last homegrown performance last year, not this year, I couldn't make it this year, but you did a stunning piece um, with Capua Gates that I cried, and many other people did as well. It was really, really beautiful, very moving. We've actually had our first question, Martin. So, Sarah would like to know, do you miss performing?
Absolutely not. No, no, sir. I don't. I don't miss performing. You know what? I remember how extremely fit a dancer has to be. I mean, dancers train phenomenally hard. Even the sinews in their feet have to be so well trained and so strong. And I've got to that age now, unfortunately, where yeah, I know what it takes. I'm not prepared to train that hard anymore. I did it for enough years. So yeah, not for me. However, in a couple of years, I'll be old enough to join one of those plus groups, which means I can join a dance company as an elder dancer, and that means I don't have to jump around as much. So maybe, who knows? The stage may see me grace it once again yet.
I love that. That's so funny. Um, Actually, on that note, so for anyone who wants to dance, who's an aspiring dancer, do you have any tips on how they can train? What should they be
Yeah.
doing in the gym?
Come and train with us.
I like
Um,
that.
um, yeah, no, it's you know what? When I was younger, we used to say you got to eat and sleep it. You know, so you have dancers that will constantly train, and train, and miss the beauty of what we actually train for. So I think you've got to find the right balance. And the right balance being, yes, you've got to be physically fit to do the work that's required of you at that time, but also you've got to make sure that you're still loving what you're doing. You've got to get that balance right. You've got to love it, and or find what it is within dance that you love. Um, and if you don't need to train hard for what you want to do, you don't have to train hard. Then don't. But if you want to be, if you want to dance with the Royal Ballet, if you want to be with Kuberg, um, then yeah, the competition is hard. If you want to dance at that level, so it's about understand maybe deciding, when the time is right for you. How hard are you prepared to work, and what do you want to achieve?
That's really useful advice. And what about is it true that dancers need to be really careful with their nutrition? So you've got to eat enough, you've got to make sure if you're training that hard that you eat well. Um, I know a lot of the dancers that I hang out with have said, I'm not drinking tonight, or sometimes they will still let their hair down and have fun, but actually, I think a lot of people underestimate the dedication that goes into dancing for, say, 8 hours a day. That kind of discipline takes, real passion and strength.
I think there's no one size fits all, and dancers are great at getting to know their bodies, and so a dancer will be able to decide when they need to eat, what they need to eat, what they need more of. I think the key message here is dancers eat. A lot of people used to think that no, dancers don't eat. They try not to eat. They no, dancers are incredibly fit. Yeah, they're finely tuned athletes, and they've got to get enough rest time, enough recuperation time. They've got to eat well. They've got to eat correctly, and everybody's metabolism is different. So what might work for me might not work for you. I'm lucky; I've got quite a high metabolism, so I can practically eat as much of and anything I want, um, and still maintain my physicality. Um, where another dancer might have to look at what they're eating and their nutrition in a slightly different way. So there's not one size to fit all, but definitely dancers eat. And if they don't eat the correct food, their bones get brittle. That means they keep getting injured. They're likely to break bones. Yeah, you've got to eat healthily. Absolutely.
An organization, a dance organization, where you have heaps of dancers that come through your doors. Some are extremely talented and have made it into your Phoenix, youth academy, or your Northeast Academy, or you've got Capoeira Gate who are part of Gateway Studio. So you've got different levels, I guess, of dance and ability. Um, do you find that you have to give a lot of advice to your dancers, and pull them up when they maybe not as fit, or you see that they're getting the same injuries, and maybe do you have those conversations?
We do have conversations about injuries, and where, especially with our younger dancers, we're really careful when it comes to their well-being, and that's mental and physical well-being. We don't want any dancers working. Dancers are notorious for their pain threshold they're notorious for having an extremely high pain threshold. Um, they will continue dancing with broken legs, broken ankles, um, and so we have to be really, really careful and observant. As soon as we see one of our dancers begin to twitch, begin to touch a part of their body, then immediately our mind goes to, have they hurt themselves? Have they pulled a muscle? Have they strained something? So we're constantly on the lookout for that, and then always advise what's appropriate for them at the time. But yeah, injuries can become chronic if you don't catch them early, and look after them. And we're not doctors, we're dancers. So our first point of call is, you need to go and see somebody.
Absolutely. It's so nice to hear the transition, I guess. You were a dancer, or you are still a dancer, but you're now more of a artistic director, so you're leading movement, leading choreography, so your roles change, but also managing a community organization, you've got to do paperwork and manage staff and have the staff meetings and do the disciplinaries and that kind of thing, so that can be kind of tough as well. It's such a broad scope, rather than just going in and teaching dance. You're making so much happen.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know what? We love it because it's no 2 days are the same. Every day is completely different, and it's just full of variety. And that's what makes the job interesting. I have to balance my time between being creative in the studio, and looking at the business side and the business elements of what we're doing. So, for example, we've just been lucky; we've been awarded some money from the Heritage Lottery Enterprise Fund to develop our building, which means we're going to build new studios. We're going to be a cafe and event space. We uh, we're going to open up our building to a um, much wider community. And so a lot of effort and time is around designing programs that are going to populate the building. How do we make everybody feel welcome? How do we draw more people towards us? As well as working with project managers, um, surveyors, and all of those people that it takes to pull a building, a capital project off the ground.
But that's the thing as well, dance and creativity is a very uh, particular skill, but then to be able to collaborate and work with surveyors and work with project managers, and how do you find that blur of
Well,
different
here's the
skills and
thing.
different people?
This is the thing, right? Because dancers think, or most people, I would say, would think, dance is dance and business is business. But actually, other than the change in language and terminology, it's actually very, very similar. So, what a dancer does when they're trying to create in the studio, when they're looking at choreography, for example, they'll have an idea or something they want to express, and they'll try it the first time and it's not quite right. So they try it a second time, a third time, fourth time. So it's trial and error. But what they become good at is problem solving. And the more they choreograph, the quicker they get to the root of what they want to express. So one of the great skills that a dancer has, a choreographer has, is the ability to solve problems. And once you have that ability, that's easy to transfer that into business, because for every question someone asks, the simple thing is, well, how am I going to achieve that? And once you can ask yourself that question, how am I going to achieve it? You automatically start looking for solutions rather than problems. I can't do that because of. I can't do that because of. Begin to look at things, and it's straight away. It's just like, well, how am I going to do that? And that's generally the approach that dancers have to any task. And when it comes to looking at business, that skill is in high regard.
Absolutely. And there are lots of transferable skills there. Even just, when you're performing like you have all over the world as an international dancer, making sure you're in the right place at the right time, you're in the right country, you've negotiated the right fee. There's so much that comes into it. In everything you're doing. We did have a question from Mark, which was, what would be your dream dance project? I don't know if you'd like to share anything there with him.
Oh, my dream dance project. Wow. Um, oh,
So
that's
you
going
can
to be
go
a
as
hot
big
one.
as you want.
I can go as big as I want. Do you know what? I guess it would be having my biggest project would be having a show in the West End or on Broadway, or to choreograph for a movie or something like that. Yeah, that'd be that for me personally. Yeah, that'd be my goal.
So what's stopping you?
What's the time? Is something I'd like to do, but I've got to get some things done before 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 I look at that. Yeah, I think at the moment I want to finish the projects that I've got at the moment, but that there's a possibility, and who knows? Why not?
I love that. I love to hear you dreaming big. It's really powerful, and I know it'll inspire lots of people listening. So I know that it's a word that we don't really want to talk about at the moment, but the coronavirus, I'd love to know, how has that impacted Gateway Studio project? Because you have so many amazing projects that we're going to be launching this year. You spoke about your community space. How does that impact you, the wider dance community, the the people you serve who come into your space?
Well, okay, so I mean, we have various projects. A lot of them are building based, and some of them are not. So first and foremost, we've had to stop all activity uh, that's dance related, basically. So we can't get together and dance with anyone. So our building is basically closed at the moment. We also, in our building, we also host other cultural organizations, and they're in the same place. Everybody has financial, it has financial implications for everyone. um, and the strange thing is, we have a lot of earned income. We don't receive a lot of grants. um, and in any other circumstance, in a situation like this, it's always the funding that gets cut, and we always go, well, we earn. But this has hit everyone. No one's escaping this, and so it's been really difficult. And our approach to it has been to go, let's just stop for a moment. Let's have a breather. Let's have a look around and see where we are, because it's almost like every day something else has changed, and we'd have to keep changing with that. So we've taken the approach where, we've contact our staff, make sure they're okay. A lot of freelance artists, there is some help we can offer, some help we can't. We're doing a lot of signposting to information, and other organizations who are better placed to help. Um, but we want to take a good look at the lay of the land before we start implementing changes. We do have um, some contracts that we can deliver online. So there's a lot of dance theory work that we deliver online. And that's continuing. Obviously, Easter break, we can have a bit of a rest from that. But but it's hard talking about dance to a screen all day. So that raises its own issues. There's been a couple of classes where fitness classes we've delivered online. We may look to continue that. Um, but yeah, we're in the same boat as everybody else, and it's just about taking the time to make some steps forward, some sure-footed steps forward, not knee-jerk reactions.
Absolutely. And actually, being a community organization, you have a lot of your dancers who really benefit from coming. Some of your kids are looked after children. Maybe they haven't got um, other places to go or things to do. So dance for them is a release and an outlet. So I can only imagine how hard it must be for them at this time to not have that space to go and connect with.
It's we do have some resource packs that we send out. There are so many, like the Norwegian opera, for example. You can get online and you can take class with them. So it's the internet has allowed us to have contacts really internationally. And the great thing about artists is that they're really generous. Everyone is so generous in sharing the knowledge and the skills that they can during this time. I mean, I do hope it continues when we get over all of this. I'm sure it will. But there's so many resources online. We share what we've got to try and keep everyone engaged the best way we can. Where we've got a couple of creative projects that we're not going to talk too much about at the minute until they're up and running online. But yeah, we've taken a step back so we can go what is really needed. And there's great things out there, like all these TikTok dances that some of them are just blow me away. They're just amazing. I'm entertained. So young people are pretty resourceful, and I, I think they're better placed to ask to tell us how we can help them rather than us, um, forcing things on them.
That's such an innovative and fresh response, actually, because so many people, um, just tell young people what to do and how they should be. And I know I do in the community work I do, there's always young people saying, well, actually, we just want to be able to have our own voice. And
Yeah.
and the organizations are always saying, well, how do we engage more people? How do we get the young people here? So it's really nice to do what you're doing and actually ask them or let them go from the ground up. I think that's a really unique point about Gateway Studio and the center that you run, because it's a family orientated center. Your kids are, there all the time, and they're part of the family, and it is a very family orientated vibe. So even your youngest daughter Amber, she makes the most amazing healthy snacks without much sugar, but nurturing her dreams of baking and things like that and selling them at Gateway. uh, it's really nice to see that level of support across the board. You're supporting the artist, but also her dreams and the young people who are accessing your service and things like that.
Yeah. one of the things that we really try to do is, yes, we use dance. Dance is a tool, um, but we're good at creating environments. And the environment that we create is one that is a safe space, that is this has a lot of equality when you come there. And even though we have other organizations that we host, we have three other organizations. Our dream was to actually, I'm old school, was to have an artist village, based on that phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. So what we wanted to do was create an environment where a young person could walk through the door and they would be surrounded by artistry, um, and they could choose what they wanted to tap into, or they might walk in, think they're coming to a dance class, and then hear some jazz, some live music, and then be inspired to go and learn some music. And yeah, it when the young people like Amber, when they turn around and say, "Can I do this?" Well, we're like, "Why not?" Give them opportunities to do and create. It's all about making sure we have that environment that's a creative space.
Absolutely. I'd love to hear a little bit about the actual building. So it's one of the oldest listed buildings in Gateshead, is that right?
That's right. It's a Job Dobson Grade One listed building. It's in dire need of repair. I think there's, the because it's a listed building, the roof alone is something like ridiculous, like £600,000 just to do the essential repairs on the roof and the brickwork. Um, and so yeah, it's attached to St Edmund's Chapel, and actually St Edmund's Chapel was 12th century, and I think it was in the 16th century they added another aisle to the chapel, and that's where we exist. Um, but nobody really cares about the aisle. It's the chapel that is the is the gem. Oh, possibly is the oldest building in Gateshead. Um, and we occupy the Trinity Centre, which is attached to it, and we're remodeling it. Um, we're looking at two brand new studios. We're looking at a cafe and an event space, and a performance space. So we're hoping to, alongside offices, so we can keep the excuse me, so we can keep the other organisations in the building with us, to help to keep that environment, but to make it friendly. It's a really imposing building on the high street, and it has a big, huge black wooden door, and it hangs over the high street, and so we want to make some changes to it to make it more welcoming for the general public as well, so they can come in and see what we do, and they can access some of the programs that we run.
Absolutely. And actually, you've run things like the late shows, which is a cultural program of events that happens in Newcastle and Gateshead in the northeast of England. And that's a really powerful um, series of events. And it's a shame that obviously we're not doing that this year, but
Yeah.
fingers crossed in future that'll come back.
Yeah, I mean, we loved it. We took part for the first time last year. I think we was open till something like 10:30 at night or something like that, and where people can just walk in off the street and have a look at um, some of the provision that we provide. And yeah, the Mucka Jumbies were there. They were on their sticks walking up and down the high street, and that brought a lot of attention to what we do in the building. Um, so yeah, it was really good to get just your average person walking off the street, have a look at what we do, and comment on it for good or for bad. It was like, this is what we do. But it was really positive,
But
really positive.
also just hearing, not maybe lots of people in Gateshead don't know that there's this incredible cultural organization doing what you do in such a historic space. I know I was there at the late shows last year, and it was really powerful to see stilt walkers walking down the streets in very bright, colourful clothes, and lots of people kind of coming by thinking, what are you doing, who are you, what is this place? It was a really atmospheric night.
Yeah, I think. I mean, Gateshead is one of those high streets that has been decimated. over the last decade or so. Um, and so no one really expects much activity in itself. Um, and so anything that we do that shines outside, that shines a light inside, um, is generally really welcomed by Gateshead residents. You know, it's something different. It brightens up their journey, wherever they're coming from, going to, and it does spark an interest in what's happening in the building.
Absolutely. So we've had a question, Martin, about who do you look up to in your pro dancer career?
Oh, now that's a really difficult one because I, there's so many dancers for different reasons that I look up to, but I think I'm going to have to say Namron. Namron Yaram. He's the one who mentored me as a young dancer. He was the first black dancer to be hired by a contemporary dance company in the UK. He was a founder member of London Contemporary Dance Theatre. He was a founder member of the Northern School of Contemporary Dance, and yeah, he kept me in check. Um, yeah, Namron's probably the person I looked up to the most. And I'm so grateful and so lucky that I still get the opportunity to work with Namron from time to time. Um, I mean, he's 75 now, 75, 76, and he's still performing. And I just think that is just amazing that he can still do that. So yeah, it's got to be Namron without a doubt. Yeah, without a doubt.
I think you're very right there. He's incredibly talented, and with your permission, I'd love to put one of your videos of my memories reflect because that performance with yourself and Elijah and Namron, to see the way that he still moves is really powerful. I'd love to share that with listeners so they can
Yeah,
see that as well.
yeah. Feel free, absolutely.
And we've Suki said thank you for answering her
Oh, you're
question, so
welcome,
that's
Suki.
great. So I don't want to keep you all night because I know we've got our NHS clap coming and we don't want to hold anyone back who wants to clap. And we just on that note, you've got an amazing sister who's working in the NHS and a lot of your family. So do you want to say anything to them?
Yeah, Marcia. I know Marcia is. She's working there in Sheffield, um, and I know that she will be. Um, yeah, her and all the staff there will be working extremely hard, and under these circumstances, putting themselves at risk. And if you don't know anyone in the NHS, and you don't know anyone who's been affected by the virus, I think you can almost take it quite lightly. Um, but when you're a bit closer to it, or it gets a bit close to home, which I hope for many of you listening, it doesn't. Um, but the such huge thank you to my sister and all her colleagues up and down the country, who are out there and really literally on the front line. I know we keep hearing that, but yeah, it's I've got total huge amounts of respect. Thank you, sis.
Absolutely. Great. So our favorite question that we always like to ask. So, what is your number one word to nurture your zest?
Oh, my number one word. Authenticity. Yeah, authentic. Gotta be. Be you. Be the real you. Be the real you. Not the pretend you, the real you.
I love
Absolutely.
I love that because it actually ties in everything you said about breaking the rules, but thinking in a different way, being more solution focused and, positive and working together and all of that. So that's beautiful. And I think your whole family is authentic. So that's beautiful. And another unique selling point of Gateway Studio Project.
Oh,
So
thank you.
obviously we're going through a rough time now with this virus. What are you looking forward to when everything's done? How can people find you? Will we have a party?
Yeah, it's got to be a massive party. We're going to throw open our doors, welcome everybody down to the studio. You know what? I'm looking forward to having a really good dance, a really big party. We're gonna party hard, man. Party hard.
I
So
love
yeah.
that. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Martin, and to everyone for listening. I'm going to let you go now.
Thank you, Ash. Thank you very
It's a
much.
pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
So thank you so much for listening to Nurture Your Zest and for tuning in tonight. It was really, really lovely to hear Martin share his story and everything that he's been through, but also his incredible journey in dance. So we hope you've enjoyed it. Go and clap for the NHS now, and we will be back on live next Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. So we'll see you then. Thank you very much. Bye.
You've been listening to Nurture Your Zest. You can find us online on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and LinkedIn at Nurture Your Zest. If you've liked today, please subscribe. You can also leave us a review if you're feeling extra kind. Today's podcast has been made available through the kind sponsorship of TL Multimedia and That Branding Company. We look forward to catching up with you again soon as you learn to nurture your zest.